Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract wealth while others struggle for years, trying every manifestation technique under the sun, yet their bank account remains frustratingly unchanged? What if I told you that the answer might be hiding in plain sight, wrapped up in 3 simple words that you've probably said countless times without realizing the devastating impact they're having on your financial future? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. There's a phrase that rolls off our tongues so naturally, so automatically, that we never question its power. It feels honest, even necessary. After all, isn't it normal to want things? Isn't desire the driving force behind all achievement? But here's where it gets fascinating, and perhaps a little unsettling. This seemingly innocent phrase might be the very reason why wealth continues to elude you, no matter how hard you work, how much you visualize, or how many affirmations you repeat. Has this ever happened to you? You wake up motivated, ready to manifest abundance. You do your morning routine, speak your affirmations with conviction, maybe even write in your gratitude journal. Yet as the day progresses, you catch yourself slipping back into old patterns of thinking, old ways of speaking about money that feel so natural you don't even notice them anymore. And then, weeks or months later, you look around and wonder why nothing has fundamentally changed in your financial reality. The truth is, most people are unknowingly programming their subconscious mind for lack every single day. They're speaking a language that the universe interprets as a clear instruction to maintain the status quo. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this profound connection between our words, our consciousness, and our reality better than most. She recognized that every time we speak, we're essentially casting a spell, programming our deeper mind, and sending out a vibrational frequency that the law of assumption responds to with mathematical precision. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because it challenges everything we've been taught about desire and manifestation. We've been conditioned to believe that wanting something intensely enough will somehow magnetize it into our lives. But what if the opposite is true? What if the very act of wanting is actually pushing away the very thing we desire most? Stay with me until the end, because once you understand the hidden mechanics behind this linguistic trap, you'll never speak about money the same way again. In fact, you might find yourself catching other people in this same pattern, wondering how you ever missed something so obvious, so fundamental to the art of conscious creation. The phrase I'm talking about isn't obviously negative. It doesn't sound like self-sabotage. In fact, it sounds perfectly reasonable, even spiritual. But embedded within its innocent syllables is a code that your subconscious mind reads as an instruction manual for perpetual lack. And until you become aware of this pattern and consciously choose to speak differently, you'll continue to experience the same financial struggles, wondering why the law of attraction seems to work for everyone except you. The question isn't whether you've been caught in this trap. Almost everyone has. The question is, are you ready to step out of it? If this resonates with you, hit subscribe. Every video here reinforces the mindset that matches your new identity as someone who attracts abundance effortlessly. The phrase, of course, is, "I want money." And the moment you understand why these 3 words are sabotaging your financial transformation, everything changes. Because hidden within this innocent statement is a profound identity crisis that most people never recognize. Think about it for a moment. When you say, "I want to be rich," what identity are you actually claiming? You're unconsciously positioning yourself as someone who currently is not rich. You're speaking from a place of absence, from a version of yourself that exists in a state of separation from wealth. Every time these words leave your lips, you're reinforcing the very identity that keeps you locked in financial struggle. This isn't just semantic wordplay. This goes to the very core of how reality is constructed. Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life studying the hidden mechanics behind conscious creation, and what she discovered was revolutionary. She realized that the law of assumption doesn't respond to your hopes, your dreams, or your desperate wants. It responds to something far more fundamental: your being, your core identity, the version of yourself that you unconsciously assume to be true. Here's the hidden truth that most people miss. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you are, your current state of being. The identity you carry in your deeper consciousness acts like a magnetic force that draws experiences, opportunities, and yes, money that match that internal frequency. If you're being someone who wants money, the universe has no choice but to keep you in a perpetual state of wanting. This revelation completely transforms how we approach manifestation. Most people are trying to use techniques and affirmations to get something they believe they don't have. But the real journey isn't about acquisition. It's about recognition. It's about shifting your fundamental identity from someone who lacks to someone who inherently possesses. The impact of this understanding ripples through every aspect of your financial life. When you catch yourself saying, "I want money," you're actually programming your subconscious mind to maintain the gap between where you are and where you think you need to be. You're instructing your deeper consciousness to keep you in the role of the seeker, rather than the finder, the wanter, rather than the haver. But here's where it gets really interesting. The moment you become aware of this pattern, you gain access to a completely different way of relating to wealth. Instead of speaking from lack, you can begin to speak from abundance. Instead of affirming what you don't have, you can start embodying what you already are. This isn't about pretending or forcing yourself to believe something that feels untrue. It's about remembering a deeper truth about your nature that the wanting mindset has been covering up. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation because understanding the problem is only the first step. The real magic happens when you discover what to say instead, when you learn the specific phrases that align your identity with abundance rather than lack. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to shift my identity," if this is resonating with you so far. So here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just another technique to add to your manifestation toolbox. This is your reset point. This is the moment where you stop trying to fix your relationship with money and start rebuilding it from the foundation up. Because the truth is, most people have been approaching wealth creation backwards, trying to pile new strategies on top of an identity that's fundamentally misaligned with abundance. The journey from lack to abundance isn't about learning more methods or finding the perfect affirmation. It's about recognizing that your entire state of being has been unconsciously programmed to maintain separation from wealth. Every time you've said, "I want money," you've been reinforcing an inner self-concept that positions you as someone who doesn't have it. And no amount of visualization or goal setting can overcome an identity that's working against you behind the scenes. But here's where the real transformation begins. The shift I'm about to share with you goes far beyond simply changing your words. This is about fundamentally altering your energetic frequency, your core assumptions about who you are, and ultimately, your relationship with freedom itself. Because wealth isn't really about money. It's about the liberation that comes when you stop fighting against your own nature. The phrase that changes everything must be felt in your bones, embodied in your being, breathed into your cells. You can't just repeat it mechanically like a robot and expect miracles. The power isn't in the words themselves. It's in the energetic shift that happens when you truly assume a new identity. When you speak from a place of already being rather than desperately wanting, something fundamental changes in your vibrational signature. Think about the people you know who seem naturally magnetic to opportunities and abundance. There's something different about their energy, isn't there? They don't chase or beg or desperately want. They simply assume their worthiness, and the world responds accordingly. They've learned to speak from a place of inner certainty rather than outer need. This is the hidden truth that most manifestation teachers won't tell you. The universe doesn't respond to your techniques. It responds to your authentic state of being. When you're genuinely operating from an identity of abundance rather than lack, when you're truly embodying wealth consciousness rather than just thinking about it, reality has no choice but to mirror that frequency back to you. The transformation happens at the cellular level, in the quiet moments between thoughts, in the way you breathe when no one's watching, in the assumptions you carry so naturally that you don't even realize they're there. This is why mechanical repetition of affirmations often fails. You're trying to convince your mind of something your being doesn't actually believe. If you felt that shift happening, tap the like button. It tells me this approach is working and helps the message reach others ready for the same awakening. But when you discover the right phrase, when you feel it resonate in your core, when you begin to embody it rather than just speak it, everything shifts. Your decisions change. Your posture changes. Your relationship with uncertainty changes. You start moving through the world as someone who belongs to abundance rather than someone hoping to eventually find it. Now, I want to reveal the exact phrase that creates this fundamental shift, because once you experience what it feels like to speak from true abundance consciousness rather than disguised lack, you'll never want to go back to the old way. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to embody abundance," if you can feel this shift beginning to happen inside you. The phrase that transforms everything is actually simpler than you might expect. But before I reveal it, I want you to consider something that might initially challenge your beliefs about how wealth really works. Right now, at this very moment, there are people walking this earth who have money flowing to them in ways that seem almost magical. These aren't necessarily the smartest people, the most educated, or even the hardest working. What they possess is something far more powerful than intelligence or effort. They've learned to assume themselves into abundance. Every decision they make, every word they speak, every movement they take comes from a reality they've already chosen to inhabit. They don't hope for wealth, they operate from it. They don't dream about financial freedom, they breathe it. And here's the fascinating part. They're not pretending or faking it until they make it. They've genuinely shifted their core identity to such a degree that abundance feels as natural to them as breathing. Watch how these people move through the world. Notice their body language when they talk about money. Observe the quiet confidence in their voice when opportunities arise. There's no desperation, no grasping, no sense of urgency born from scarcity. They've learned to embody a frequency that money recognizes and responds to. It's as if they speak the same energetic language as abundance itself. This brings us to the question that changes everything, the one inquiry that most people never think to ask themselves. Instead of constantly wondering, "How do I get more money?" which immediately positions you as someone who doesn't have it, the real question becomes, "Who am I being when I think about money?" This single shift in focus revolutionizes your entire approach to wealth creation. Are you being someone who chases money, or someone money chases? Because here's the hidden truth behind every financial breakthrough. Your identity is the invisible force that determines your financial reality. When you chase, you're operating from lack, from need, from a sense that something outside of you holds the key to your liberation. But when you become someone money chases, you've tapped into a completely different energetic current. Think about the most naturally abundant people you've encountered. They don't run after opportunities. Opportunities seem to find them. They don't beg for recognition. They simply assume their value. They don't fight for their place at the table. They know they belong there. This isn't arrogance or entitlement. It's the natural result of an identity that's aligned with abundance rather than resistance. The transformation happens when you stop trying to get something you think you don't have and start being someone who naturally possesses it. This is where most people get confused because they're still thinking in terms of action rather than identity, doing rather than being, acquiring rather than recognizing. Now, I want to share with you the exact phrase that creates this identity shift, the words that move you from the energy of chasing to the frequency of magnetic attraction. Write in the comments, "I choose to be abundant," if you're feeling this shift in perspective, beginning to take hold. The phrase that changes everything is, "Wealth is my natural state." But before you dismiss this as just another affirmation, let me explain why these 5 words create such a profound transformation in your financial reality. The moment you truly embody this statement, you step out of the endless cycle of pursuit that has been keeping you locked in financial struggle. Here's what most people don't realize about the mechanics of manifestation. When you say, "I want money," you're not just expressing a desire. You're actually putting your entire being into a state of pursuit. And here's the hidden truth that Florence Scovel Shinn understood so clearly. In the universe of assumption, pursuit means postponement. The very act of chasing something confirms that you don't currently have it, which instructs your subconscious mind to maintain that separation indefinitely. Think about it from a purely logical perspective. When you want something, what message are you sending to your deeper consciousness? You're essentially programming yourself to remain in a perpetual state of wanting rather than having. The universe, operating like a perfect mirror, has no choice but to reflect that state back to you. It doesn't respond to your hopes, your dreams, or your desperate wishes. It responds to the dominant frequency you're broadcasting. And if that frequency is, "I don't have it yet," then that's exactly what you'll continue to experience. This is why so many people can spend years doing affirmations, vision boards, and manifestation techniques without seeing any real change in their financial circumstances. They're approaching the whole process from the wrong energetic position. They're trying to use spiritual tools to get something they believe they lack, which only reinforces the very lack they're trying to overcome. The mirror effect is operating constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel is being reflected back to you in your external circumstances. If you're carrying a state of wanting, the universe keeps you wanting. If you're operating from a state of chasing, life keeps you in endless pursuit. This isn't punishment or some cosmic joke. It's simply how consciousness creates reality. Subscribe if you're ready to make this permanent. This becomes your regular reminder of who you're becoming, and consistency is what makes the transformation stick. But here's where the real magic begins to happen. The moment you shift from "I want money" to "wealth is my natural state," everything changes. You're no longer speaking from lack or pursuit. You're declaring a fundamental truth about your nature that transcends circumstances. You're not asking for something you don't have. You're recognizing something you've always been. This phrase works because it's not about acquisition. It's about recognition. You're not trying to become wealthy. You're remembering that wealth is simply who you are at your core. Just like you don't try to become human or work to become conscious, wealth becomes as natural and effortless as breathing. Now, I want to explore exactly what happens in your nervous system and subconscious mind when you make this crucial shift from wanting to being. Write in the comments, "Wealth is my natural state," if you can feel this truth beginning to resonate within you. When you truly understand this principle, you start to see why so many well-intentioned people remain stuck despite doing all the right things. They're visualizing abundance, writing gratitude lists, repeating powerful affirmations, and creating beautiful vision boards. On the surface, they appear to be doing everything correctly. But here's the hidden flaw that sabotages even the most dedicated spiritual seekers. They're performing all these techniques from the wrong inner state. Picture someone standing in front of a mirror, desperately trying to change their reflection by wiping the glass. They can scrub and polish that mirror all day long, but until they change what's actually standing in front of it, the reflection remains the same. This is exactly what happens when you do manifestation work while maintaining an inner identity of lack. You're essentially trying to convince the universe to give you something you're unconsciously telling it you don't have. The transformation fails because your techniques are working against your core beliefs about yourself. You might be visualizing wealth for 20 minutes each morning, but if you spend the other 23 hours and 40 minutes thinking, feeling, and acting from a consciousness of limitation, which energy do you think is more powerful? Your brief moments of visualization or your dominant state of being? This is where Florence Scovel Shinn's profound insight becomes absolutely crucial to understand. She observed that to be conscious of being poor while praying for riches is to be rewarded with that which you are conscious of being, poverty. This isn't just spiritual philosophy. It's a precise description of how consciousness creates reality. Your consciousness of your state, not your hopes or prayers or techniques, determines what you actually experience. Most people miss this completely. They think manifestation is about convincing the universe to give them something they currently lack. But the real journey is about shifting your consciousness to align with what you're asking for. You can't simultaneously hold poverty consciousness and expect abundance to flow into your life. It's energetically impossible. The universe responds to your dominant frequency, your prevailing state of consciousness, your most consistent inner assumption about who you are. If deep down you still identify as someone who struggles with money, someone who has to work hard for every dollar, someone who wasn't born lucky or privileged, then no amount of positive thinking can override that fundamental programming. This is why the phrase "wealth is my natural state" is so powerful. It's not trying to get something from outside of you. It's recognizing something that's already true about your essential nature. When you speak these words with genuine feeling, you're not asking the universe for anything. You're simply acknowledging what you are. Now I want to show you exactly how to embody this truth in your daily life, because knowing the principle is only the beginning. Write in the comments, I understand consciousness creates reality. If this deeper layer of manifestation is starting to make sense to you. The beautiful simplicity of this transformation lies in one fundamental shift, moving from I want to I already am. This isn't about pretending or forcing yourself to believe something that feels untrue. It's about making a calm, grounded transition from hoping for something in the future to recognizing what's already present within you, right now. The journey from someday to now, from hoping to having, happens when you understand what truly creates wealth, assumption, and being. Most people live their entire lives in a perpetual state of becoming. They're always working towards something, always moving toward a future version of themselves that will finally have what they want. But this approach keeps wealth forever just out of reach, like a carrot dangling in front of a horse. The breakthrough comes when you realize that the version of you who has wealth isn't some future possibility. It's a present reality that you can step into immediately. This is where the profound mechanics of manifestation begin to reveal themselves. When you stop saying, I want, and genuinely start living from, I already have, something extraordinary happens in the fabric of reality itself. The external world, which has been reflecting your state of lack, suddenly has no choice but to begin conforming to your new inner assumption. It's as if reality itself starts rearranging to match the frequency you're now broadcasting. Money doesn't require your permission to flow into your life. It doesn't need you to earn it through suffering or prove that you're worthy of it through struggle. What money requires is a match, a perfect alignment between your inner state and your chosen outcome. When that match occurs, when your consciousness and your desire are in complete harmony, the manifestation becomes inevitable. Think about it from an energetic perspective. Every emotion you feel, every thought you think, every assumption you carry is broadcasting a specific frequency into the quantum field around you. When you operate from, I want money, you're sending out the frequency of lack, of separation, of not having. But when you shift to, wealth is my natural state, you're broadcasting the frequency of abundance, of already having, of being inherently valuable. The universe, which is essentially pure consciousness responding to. Consciousness has no choice but to mirror back whatever frequency you're consistently emanating. This isn't mystical thinking. It's the basic mechanics of how reality operates at the quantum level. Your inner state is literally organizing the circumstances, opportunities, and experiences that show up in your physical world. The revelation that changes everything is understanding that you don't have to wait for external circumstances to validate your worth or confirm your abundance. You can claim that identity right now, in this moment, regardless of what your bank account looks like or what bills are sitting on your desk. Now, I want to explore exactly how to make this shift from a theoretical understanding to a lived experience that transforms your daily reality. Write in the comments, I am ready to live from abundance now, if you can feel this possibility awakening within you. The transformation begins with a moment of radical honesty that most people never allow themselves to experience. I want you to pause right now and ask yourself this question. How long have you been wanting money? Really think about it. Has it been months, years, perhaps even decades? And here's the follow-up question that creates the real awakening. Where has all that wanting actually gotten you? This isn't about judgment or making you feel bad about your current circumstances. This is about creating a necessary wake-up call that breaks through the illusion that wanting somehow leads to having. Because here's the uncomfortable truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The longer you stay in want, the longer you stay in lack. Wanting and having are not just different experiences. They're opposite energetic frequencies that cannot coexist in the same space. Think about the people in your life who seem to effortlessly attract opportunities and abundance. Do they spend their time wanting things, or do they simply assume their worthiness and move through the world with quiet confidence? There's a fundamental difference in how they relate to life itself. They've learned something that most people never discover. Wanting keeps you eternally separated from having. This brings us to one of the most profound insights about how reality operates. The universe functions like a perfect mirror, reflecting back to you exactly what you're putting out energetically. When you say, "I want money," you might think you're expressing a positive desire, but what you're actually doing is unconsciously declaring, "I don't have it." And the universe, operating with mathematical precision, reflects that state of not having back to you. This isn't happening as some form of cosmic punishment or because you've done something wrong. The universe isn't judging your worthiness or deciding whether you deserve abundance. It's simply matching your dominant energetic state, because that's how consciousness creates reality. If your prevailing frequency is "I don't have," then your experience will continue to confirm that lack. The mirror effect is happening constantly, in every moment, whether you're aware of it or not. Your thoughts, emotions, words, and assumptions are continuously being reflected back to you in the form of your circumstances. This is why changing your external situation without addressing your internal state is like trying to change your reflection without changing what's standing in front of the mirror. A quick like affirms your transformation and helps this frequency reach people who need it. You're not just supporting the video, you're declaring your new identity. But here's where the real power lies. The moment you understand that the universe is simply mirroring your state back to you, you realize that you have complete control over what gets reflected. You're not a victim of circumstances, you're the creator of them. Every experience you're having is showing you exactly what frequency you've been broadcasting. Now, I want to reveal the second powerful phrase that completely transforms your relationship with wealth. Because once you understand how the mirror works, you can consciously choose what to reflect. Write in the comments, "I choose what gets reflected," if you're beginning to see how much power you actually have in this process. The second phrase that transforms everything is, "I don't chase, I attract wealth effortlessly." But before you even speak these words, I want you to understand the profound principle behind why this works so powerfully. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something revolutionary about the nature of time and manifestation when she taught us to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. She understood that assumption has the power to collapse time itself. Most people live trapped in linear thinking, believing they have to slowly work their way from where they are now to where they want to be. They're stuck in maybe one day consciousness, always placing their dreams in some distant future. But assumption operates on a completely different timeline. When you truly assume the feeling of already having what you desire, you instantly bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Time becomes irrelevant because you're no longer becoming, you simply are. This is where most people misunderstand the entire manifestation process. They think they're trying to manifest money, attract a specific amount, or bring wealth from outside themselves into their experience. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. You're not actually manifesting money at all. You're manifesting a version of yourself that money is naturally drawn to. You're becoming someone who operates on the same frequency as abundance. Think about it this way. Money doesn't randomly appear in people's lives. It flows towards certain types of people, those who carry a specific energetic signature that wealth recognizes and responds to. These people have learned to embody the consciousness of abundance rather than just thinking about it occasionally. They've become magnetic to opportunities, connections, and resources because they've transformed their fundamental identity. This is the real game, the hidden mechanics behind every genuine financial transformation. It's not about chasing money, begging the universe for more, or trying to force circumstances to change. It's about becoming someone who naturally attracts wealth rather than someone who desperately pursues it. When you make this shift, everything changes because you've changed. The moment you stop chasing and start embodying the frequency of effortless attraction, you tap into a completely different way of relating to abundance. Chasing comes from lack, from the assumption that what you want is outside of you and difficult to obtain. But attraction comes from fullness, from the recognition that you already possess the very thing you thought you needed to seek. Now, I want to explore exactly what happens in your nervous system and daily experience when you make this crucial shift from pursuer to attractor. Write in the comments, I attract wealth effortlessly if you can feel this new identity beginning to take shape within you. When you speak the words, "Wealth is my natural state," something profound happens that goes far beyond simple affirmation. These 5 words carry within them the power to completely break the cycle of wanting and lack that has been governing your financial reality. But you can't just say them mechanically and expect miracles. You need to let them settle deep into your chest, into your bones, into the very core of your being. Feel the weight of what you're actually declaring when you speak this truth. You're not asking for wealth to come to you from somewhere outside. You're not hoping that someday you'll be worthy of abundance. You're recognizing that wealth isn't something you need to chase, earn through suffering, or sacrifice pieces of your soul to obtain. You're acknowledging that prosperity is simply who you are at your essential core. This shift transforms wealth from being a goal into being a given. Most people spend their entire lives treating abundance like a destination they're trying to reach, a prize they're hoping to win, or a reward they're working to deserve. But when you truly understand that wealth is your natural state, it becomes as fundamental to your identity as any other aspect of your being. Think about how effortlessly you breathe. You don't wake up in the morning and work hard to earn the right to breathe. You don't beg the universe for permission to exist. You don't chase oxygen or worry that there won't be enough air for you. Breathing simply happens because it's your nature to be alive. Similarly, when wealth becomes part of your core identity, abundance flows as naturally as your breath. This is where most people struggle, because they've been conditioned to believe that money is scarce, that they have to fight for their place at the table, that abundance requires endless effort and sacrifice. But these beliefs are just programming, stories that have been passed down through generations of people who never discovered their true relationship with prosperity. When you operate from "wealth is my natural state," you're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're remembering something that's always been true, but has been covered up by layers of conditioning and limiting beliefs. You're returning to your original nature, the version of yourself that existed before the world taught you to doubt your inherent worthiness. The transformation happens in your nervous system first. Your body begins to relax in a way it never has before around money. The constant tension, the background anxiety about security, the fear-based decision-making all begins to dissolve because you're no longer operating from a place of lack. Now, I want to explore exactly how to embody this natural state in your daily life, because knowing the truth is only the beginning of living it. Write in the comments, "Wealth is my natural state," if you can feel this truth beginning to resonate in your body right now. The moment you shift to saying, "I don't chase, I attract wealth effortlessly," you're creating a fundamental transformation in your entire relationship with money that goes far deeper than most people realize. This isn't just a feel-good statement or positive thinking. You're literally rewiring the neural pathways in your brain that have been programmed to approach abundance from a place of desperation and pursuit. Consider the energetic difference between these two states. When you chase something, what are you unconsciously confirming? You're affirming that what you want is outside of you, moving away from you, and difficult to obtain. Chasing always comes from a place of absence, from the assumption that you don't currently have what you desire. But when you embody the frequency of attraction, you're confirming something entirely different. You're acknowledging your natural magnetism, your inherent power to draw opportunities and resources toward you without effort or strain. This shift creates what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity in action. Your brain doesn't just respond to repetition, though that's certainly important. What creates the most profound change is identity alignment. When you speak these words with genuine feeling, when you allow them to resonate through your entire being, your subconscious mind begins to register them not as fantasy or wishful thinking, but as actual instructions for how to operate in the world. The neurological rewiring happens at the cellular level. The old neural pathways that have been programmed to scan for lack, to worry about security, to operate from scarcity consciousness, begin to weaken through lack of use. Meanwhile, new pathways start forming that are aligned with abundance, ease, and natural magnetism. Your brain literally begins to reorganize itself around this new identity. But here's where most people make a crucial mistake. They say these phrases mechanically, like they're trying to convince themselves of something they don't really believe. The real transformation happens when you speak from a place of recognition rather than hope. You're not trying to become someone who attracts wealth effortlessly. You're remembering that this is who you've always been. Beneath all the conditioning and programming, the feeling is everything. When you say, "I don't chase, I attract wealth effortlessly," notice what happens in your body. Does your chest open? Do your shoulders relax? Does something settle in your nervous system? This physical response is your indication that the rewiring is actually happening, that you're aligning with a frequency your body recognizes as true. Now, I want to explore exactly what happens when you begin to embody these truths in your daily interactions and decision-making processes. Write in the comments, "I feel the shift happening," if you can sense this neurological transformation beginning to take place within you. The power of transformation amplifies exponentially when you move from private thought to public declaration. There's something profound that happens when you type, "Wealth is my natural state," or "I attract wealth effortlessly," in a comment. When you speak these truths out loud, when you make your internal shift visible to the world, this act of declaration anchors the transformation in a way that silent repetition simply cannot achieve. You're no longer just a passive consumer of information, absorbing concepts and hoping they might somehow change your life. The moment you declare your new identity publicly, you become an active creator of your reality. Your subconscious mind takes notice of this commitment in a completely different way. It's as if you're telling your deeper consciousness, "This isn't just an idea I'm entertaining. This is who I am choosing to be." But there's an even deeper layer to this transformation that most people never consider. When you consistently engage with content that reinforces wealth consciousness, when you surround yourself with voices and perspectives that align with abundance rather than lack, you're doing something far more powerful than just gathering information. You're systematically reprogramming your mental environment to match your new identity. Think about the conversations you have, the content you consume, the voices you allow into your consciousness on a daily basis. Are they reinforcing the old story of struggle and limitation, or are they supporting your emergence into abundance? Every time you return to content that reminds you of your true nature, every time you engage with ideas that elevate your consciousness around money, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support your new identity. This isn't about motivation or inspiration in the traditional sense. This is about creating an ecosystem of consciousness that makes your new identity feel natural and inevitable. When you consistently immerse yourself in the frequency of abundance, your nervous system begins to relax into this new reality. What once felt impossible or too good to be true starts to feel like the most natural thing in the world. The repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity breeds comfort. When wealth consciousness becomes familiar territory for your mind, when abundance thinking becomes your default mode of operation, the external manifestations follow naturally. You're not forcing anything to happen. You're simply aligning your inner world so completely with prosperity that your outer world has no choice but to reflect that alignment back to you. Now, I want to explore exactly how this internal transformation begins to show up in your daily decisions, interactions, and opportunities. Write in the comments, "I am actively creating my new reality," if you can feel yourself moving from passive hope to active embodiment. Knowing the phrases is only the beginning of a much deeper journey. The real transformation happens when you move beyond simply repeating, "Wealth is my natural state," and "I attract wealth effortlessly," to actually embodying these truths in every breath you take, every word you speak, every way you carry yourself through the world. This is where most people get stuck, because they treat these statements like magical incantations rather than identity shifts that must be lived. The test comes in those challenging moments when the old patterns want to resurface, when you receive an unexpected bill, when someone questions your decisions, when fear tries to creep back into your consciousness. These are the moments that reveal whether you're truly embodying abundance or just playing with the concepts intellectually. The person who has genuinely shifted breathes differently in these situations. They speak from a place of calm certainty rather than reactive panic. They carry themselves with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth isn't determined by external circumstances. But here's the profound realization that changes everything. You are not becoming abundant. You're not working towards some future version of yourself that will finally have enough money or success or security. What's actually happening is far more beautiful and revolutionary than that. You're remembering that you already are abundant. You're recognizing something about your essential nature that was always true but got covered up by years of conditioning and programming. This shift in understanding transforms the entire journey from one of achievement to one of recognition. Abundance isn't something you need to earn through struggle or prove you deserve through sacrifice. It's not a reward that comes after you've worked hard enough or suffered enough or learned enough lessons. Abundance is your birthright, as fundamental to your nature as your ability to love, to create, to experience joy. When you truly grasp this, everything becomes effortless in a way that might initially feel almost too simple to believe. You stop trying to force outcomes or manipulate circumstances. You stop watching your bank account like a nervous parent monitoring a sick child. Instead, you begin to move through life with the natural grace of someone who understands their place in the cosmic order of things. The resistance you feel to accepting this truth isn't evidence that it's not real. It's evidence of how deeply you've been programmed to believe in your own limitations. Every time doubt arises, every time the old voice whispers that you're not worthy or that abundance is reserved for other people, you have an opportunity to gently return to the recognition of who you really are. Now, I want to explore exactly what happens when you begin to embody this truth so completely that it becomes impossible for your outer world to reflect anything other than abundance. Write in the comments, "I remember who I am," if you can feel this recognition beginning to dawn within your consciousness. The missing piece that separates those who transform their financial reality from those who remain stuck in perpetual hoping lies in embodiment. Most people repeat the phrases, "Wealth is my natural state," and "I attract wealth effortlessly," like they're trying to convince someone of something that isn't quite true yet. They say the words, write them in journals, even post them on their bathroom mirrors, but they never actually become them. And here's what makes all the difference. The universe doesn't respond to your words or your techniques or your desperate attempts to think positively. It responds to your state, to what you embody, to the frequency you're actually broadcasting through your being. You must learn to assume the identity of abundance without needing any external confirmation that it's working. This is where most people sabotage themselves because they're constantly checking their bank account for proof, scanning their circumstances for evidence, waiting for the external world to validate their internal shift before they're willing to fully commit to it. But that's backwards. The external world can only reflect what you're authentically embodying internally. Let's start with something incredibly simple, yet profound. Right now, I want you to take one breath like someone who already has the money, the freedom, the absolute certainty that everything they need flows to them effortlessly. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just breathe as if you already possess everything you've been seeking. Notice what happens. Feel how your chest opens differently. Notice how your shoulders drop and your body loosens in a way you might not have experienced in years around the topic of money. This physical shift, this subtle change in how you inhabit your own body, is the real beginning of transformation. Your nervous system is responding to a frequency it recognizes as truth. Your cells are remembering what it feels like to operate from sufficiency rather than scarcity. This isn't imagination or pretending. This is you accessing a state that's always been available but has been covered up by patterns of tension and fear. The breath reveals everything because you can't fake it. When you truly breathe from abundance, when you allow your body to relax into the frequency of already having, something fundamental shifts in your energetic signature. People start responding to you differently without knowing why. Opportunities begin to present themselves in unexpected ways. The quality of your decisions improves because you're no longer operating from desperation or fear. Now, I want to explore how this embodied state begins to transform every interaction you have and every choice you make throughout your day. Write in the comments, "I can feel the shift in my body. if you experienced that change when you took that abundant breath. What most people don't realize is that every single moment of your day, you're either reinforcing your old identity or strengthening your new one. The way you walk down the hallway, the way you breathe when you're alone, even the tone of your internal dialogue when no one else can hear it, all of these seemingly insignificant moments are constantly affirming who you think you are. And here's where the disconnect happens for so many people. They'll say, "I'm abundant," with their words, but then move through the world with fear-based body language, speak apologetically about their dreams, and carry themselves like someone who's constantly bracing for disappointment. This creates what I call energetic resistance, where your conscious declarations are fighting against your unconscious embodiment. You're essentially sending mixed signals to the universe, and mixed signals create mixed results. If you're going to claim the identity of someone who attracts wealth effortlessly, then every aspect of your being needs to align with that frequency. Your posture needs to reflect confidence, your voice needs to carry certainty, your movements need to embody the grace of someone who knows they belong in abundance. The transformation begins the moment you open your eyes each morning, before you reach for your phone, before you check your emails, before you allow the external world to dictate your internal state. This is your most powerful moment of the day, when your consciousness is still soft and malleable, when you have the opportunity to consciously choose who you're going to be before the demands of daily life kick in. Instead of immediately checking what happened overnight in the world of news, social media, or work emergencies, take that first conscious breath and speak the words, "I don't chase. I attract wealth effortlessly." But don't just say them mechanically. Feel them in your bones. Let them resonate through your entire being. Then move your body like someone who knows with absolute certainty that this day is working in their favor, even if you have no external evidence to support that belief yet. This isn't about pretending or trying to convince yourself of something that feels untrue. This is about training your nervous system to operate from a different baseline frequency. When you consistently begin your day from this embodied state of abundance, you're programming your subconscious mind to look for opportunities rather than obstacles, to expect support rather than resistance, to assume success rather than struggle. The magic happens when this morning practice begins to influence every decision you make throughout the day, every conversation you have, every opportunity that presents itself. Write in the comments, "I choose my frequency first," if you're ready to make this morning practice a non-negotiable part of your transformation. The real transformation reveals itself in those everyday moments when you consciously choose to live from your new identity rather than react from your old programming. Throughout your day, as situations arise that would normally trigger stress or anxiety around money, you have an opportunity to ask yourself one powerful question. How would I move through this situation if I already knew I was financially free? This single inquiry becomes your compass, guiding your tone when you speak, your posture when you walk, your responses when challenges appear. This is what identity-based manifestation actually looks like in practice. You're not asking the universe for something you don't have. You're remembering who you already are and allowing that truth to inform every decision you make. When you receive an email about a business opportunity, do you respond from desperation or from abundance? When someone questions your choices, do you defend from a place of insecurity or explain from a place of quiet confidence? These micro moments of choice are where your new reality gets built. But here's where most people lose their way, and it's also where real power begins to emerge. The ultimate test comes when you look at your current circumstances and consciously refuse to react to them as if they define your worth or determine your future. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect of the entire transformation because everything in your conditioning wants you to panic when you see that unexpected bill, to worry when money feels tight, to slip back into old patterns of fear and scarcity. Real power emerges when you can look at that bill sitting on your desk, and instead of allowing your nervous system to spike into anxiety, you take a breath and quietly say to yourself, "This is the old reality. I've shifted." You're not denying the practical reality of what needs to be handled, but you're refusing to let external circumstances dictate your internal state. This is when reality actually begins to move, when the quantum field starts rearranging itself to match your unwavering inner assumption. The shift happens when you stop giving your current circumstances the power to determine how you feel about yourself and your future. You begin to understand that what you're seeing in your external world is simply the echo of who you used to be, not a prediction of who you're becoming. Now, I want to explore what happens when you maintain this new state consistently, especially during those inevitable moments when doubt tries to creep back in. Write in the comments, "I refuse to react to the old reality," if you can feel yourself beginning to separate your worth from your circumstances. This is where the real test begins, and it's not coming from the universe or some cosmic force deciding whether you're worthy of abundance. The test comes from within, from the old version of yourself that has been running the show for years and suddenly finds its existence threatened. After a few days of embodying "wealth is my natural state" and "I attract wealth effortlessly," when you haven't seen dramatic external changes yet, something predictable happens. The old identity launches its counterattack. It starts whispering doubts designed to pull you back into familiar territory. "See? It's not working. You were fooling yourself. This is just wishful thinking. Look at your bank account. Look at your bills. Look at your circumstances. Nothing has changed." This voice becomes louder and more insistent because your old identity is literally fighting for its survival. It knows that if you continue on this path of embodying abundance, it will cease to exist, and every part of your conditioned self is programmed to resist that dissolution. But here's what you need to understand about this resistance. The intensity of the test is actually proof that the transformation is working. Your old identity wouldn't fight so hard if it didn't sense the real threat of your evolution. The stronger the pushback, the closer you are to a genuine breakthrough. This is the moment when most people abandon their journey and slip back into wanting, back into chasing, back into the familiar struggle they've known their whole lives. The delay you're experiencing isn't punishment for doing something wrong or evidence that you're not worthy of abundance. What you're actually witnessing is recalibration happening at the deepest levels of reality. The physical world is always the last to know about internal shifts. Your circumstances are like an echo of the state you used to carry, still reverberating through time, even though you've already changed the signal at its source. Think of it like turning a massive cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. The moment the captain decides to change course and spins the wheel, the decision has been made. The new direction is set, but it takes time for that enormous vessel to actually shift its trajectory. The lag between the decision and the visible change doesn't mean the captain's command isn't working. It means physics requires time to catch up to intention. Your reality is undergoing this same process right now. The moment you genuinely shifted from "I want" to "I am," the course correction began. But the momentum of your old patterns, the inertia of your previous beliefs, the established neural pathways that have been running your life, all of these take time to realign with your new frequency. Now I want to explore exactly how to navigate this crucial period without losing faith in your transformation. Write in the comments, "I trust the process of recalibration," if you can feel yourself maintaining your new identity, even while the external changes are still catching up. The most crucial understanding during this recalibration period is recognizing that your job isn't to force the external world to change faster or to somehow accelerate the manifestation process through sheer willpower. Your role is far more elegant and powerful than that. Your only responsibility is to hold the new state with unwavering consistency until it becomes so natural, so integrated into your being, that you couldn't imagine operating any other way. This is where the majority of people sabotage their own transformation. When the delay stretches longer than they expected, when doubt starts creeping in louder than their faith, they break the cycle by unconsciously returning to wanting. They slip back into checking their bank account obsessively, scanning for evidence, allowing their current circumstances to determine their emotional state. But here's what they don't realize. This return to old patterns doesn't just pause their progress, it actually resets the entire process. Persistence in holding the new state, regardless of external appearances, is what creates lasting change. When you maintain "wealth is my natural state and I attract wealth effortlessly" as your dominant frequency, even when nothing seems to be shifting on the surface, you're building something far more valuable than temporary results. You're developing unshakable inner authority, the kind of grounded confidence that eventually becomes magnetic to opportunities. During these periods when everything feels still, when your rational mind is demanding proof and your old identity is staging its rebellion, there are specific ways to navigate without losing your center. Start by taking honest inventory of your reactions throughout the day. Are you operating from the new identity or unconsciously slipping back into old patterns of anxiety and scarcity? When you catch yourself checking for evidence or allowing circumstances to dictate your mood, gently anchor yourself back to your identity statements. The urge to constantly verify progress is perhaps the strongest temptation during this phase. But every time you check your bank account looking for confirmation, every time you scan your reality for proof that it's working, you're unconsciously affirming that you don't actually believe in the shift you've made. Instead, use repetition as a tool for recalibration, not as begging the universe for something you think you lack. When you return to "wealth is my natural state," you're not trying to convince anyone of anything. You're simply remembering who you are. Now, I want to explore what happens when you've reached that saturation point, when the new identity becomes so stable that the old doubts can't even find a foothold anymore. Write in the comments, "I hold my state with consistency," if you're committed to maintaining your new frequency regardless of external appearances. Here's where most people have been approaching the entire journey completely backwards, and understanding this reversal changes everything about how quickly your transformation occurs. The majority of people wait for external confirmation before they're willing to fully claim their new identity. They want to see money in their account before they'll believe they're abundant. They want opportunities to appear before they'll trust that they attract wealth effortlessly. But the law of assumption operates in the exact opposite direction. You must assume first, then reality confirms your assumption. You live from the new identity, then you see evidence of it in your external world. You feel the end result in your being, and reality moves to match that inner certainty. This backwards approach is what separates those who experience genuine transformation from those who remain trapped in cycles of hope and disappointment. When you truly understand this principle, you stop waiting for permission from your circumstances to feel abundant. You stop needing your bank account to validate your worth. You stop requiring external proof before you're willing to embody the frequency of wealth. Instead, you begin to operate from the end result, living as if the transformation has already occurred, because in the realm of consciousness, it has. The journey reaches its culmination when you achieve what I call saturation. This is the point where your new identity becomes so dominant, so integrated into every fiber of your being, that the old thoughts of lack and limitation don't even tempt you anymore. You've reached a state where "wealth is my natural state" is no longer something you have to remind yourself to think or feel. It's not an affirmation you repeat to convince yourself of something that might be true. It becomes your default operating system, as natural and unconscious as breathing. At this saturation point, you're not trying to attract wealth anymore, because you've become someone who simply radiates abundance without effort. People feel it when they're around you, even if they can't explain what's different. Opportunities start presenting themselves in ways that feel almost magical, but you understand it's simply the natural result of your frequency finally matching your desires completely. The transformation is complete when you no longer need to work at being abundant. You simply are abundant, and the external world has no choice but to reflect that truth back to you in increasingly obvious ways. Now I want to explore exactly what your daily life looks like when you've reached this level of saturation, when abundance has become as natural to you as any other aspect of your identity. Write in the comments, "I am becoming saturated with abundance," if you can sense yourself approaching this level of integration. When you've reached this level of saturation, your environment begins to naturally align with your internal transformation without force or pretense. You start cleaning your living space not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because someone who embodies wealth consciousness naturally creates order and beauty around them. You choose your clothing not to convince others of your success, but to express the identity that has become authentic within you. This isn't about spending money you don't have or creating false appearances. It's about allowing your external world to reflect the internal shift that has already occurred. Your relationship with money itself transforms completely. You begin speaking about financial matters with a calm neutrality that surprises even you. Where once there was charge, tension, or emotional reactivity around discussions of income, investments, or expenses, now there's simply practical clarity. You're no longer defending your choices or justifying your decisions because you've stopped seeking external validation for your inherent worth. The most profound shift happens when you start surrounding yourself with proof of the new story rather than constantly reinforcing the old limitations. This doesn't mean living in denial about current circumstances, but it means choosing to focus your attention on evidence of abundance rather than evidence of lack. You notice opportunities you previously overlooked. You acknowledge resources you already possess. You recognize support systems that were always present but hidden beneath layers of scarcity thinking. But here's the final truth that transforms everything, the understanding that makes all the techniques and practices unnecessary once you truly embody it. You don't manifest money by obsessing over it, by desperately wanting it, by constantly thinking about it, or by trying to manipulate circumstances through willpower. You manifest abundance by becoming the version of yourself who has absolutely no resistance to receiving it. This version of you operates from a completely different baseline frequency. They're calm where you used to be anxious, grounded where you used to be scattered, clear where you used to be confused, and open where you used to be contracted. They don't need to convince anyone of anything because they've stopped trying to prove their worth to the world. They simply assume their value as a given, and reality has no choice but to listen to that quiet certainty. The journey completes itself when you realize that abundance was never something you needed to acquire from outside yourself. It was always an expression of who you are when all the resistance, all the limiting beliefs, all the old programming finally dissolves. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, if you felt the shifts happening in your body as we explored these truths together, then something profound has already begun to change within you. You're not the same person who started watching this video. You've remembered something fundamental about your nature that most people spend their entire lives never discovering. The fact that you're here, right now, absorbing these insights about your relationship with abundance tells me everything I need to know about who you're becoming. You're someone who's ready to step into their power, to embody wealth, consciousness, to live from a place of natural magnetism rather than desperate pursuit. If this resonates with you, if you can feel yourself becoming someone who attracts rather than chases, I'd love for you to join this community of people who are committed to transformation. Hit that subscribe button because every video I create is designed to support you in maintaining this new frequency. This isn't just content. It's a space where we continue to reinforce the truth of who you really are. Leave a comment and simply say, "This message was meant for me," so I know you made it all the way through. When I see those words, I'll know you're someone who's serious about this transformation, someone who's willing to do the inner work that creates lasting change. And if you felt that connection we built together over these past minutes, if something inside you shifted as we explored these ideas, a quick tap on the like button lets me know this content is serving its purpose. It tells me you're finding value in this approach to abundance that goes deeper than surface-level techniques. There's a video right here that takes this conversation even further, exploring exactly how to maintain this new state when life throws you unexpected challenges. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation is just beginning, and I want to make sure you have everything you need to make it permanent.